Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real, Raw, and Honest. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor by liking, sharing, subscribing, and as we go, leave a comment as we're, going along as to what you find valuable in this content. That would be greatly appreciated. So let's just take a look at some relationships and stress. If there's anything that can cause us stress, it's relationships. Our kids, our adult kids, our younger kids, they can all just kind of drive you crazy from time to time. Maybe you've got siblings that you don't get along well with, or parents. Relationship struggles are real, and maybe it's a work relationship, and all of these things really just kind of weigh on you, and you feel the stress of that going into a situation, into work or whatever. You're looking at it and going, man, I wish I didn't have to deal with that, but there you are. So relationships are tricky because, most people don't get to have a long-term relationship with somebody where they never have a disagreement. And so disagreements can add stress to the relationship. They can add just a pressure of, what do I do now? Do I fix it? Do I not fix it? Was I right? Does it matter that I was right? Do I allow that person to have the upper hand this time? Do I want to fix it? Like, there's a lot of stress that can happen in relationships and just friendships, right? Maybe you've had friends that, you've had for 40, 50 years. Maybe you've had friends that you've valued and you've been close with them for years. And you're looking at these people and you're going, I value our friendship, but, I've got something that just happened. Something just happened in the relationship. Maybe having a disagreement. And I've seen people actually chafe at relationships over things like hockey or sports of any other kind, that there can be a chafing in the relationship because of that. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think that we need to, look at that and go, it's just a sport. Maybe we just don't need to worry about that so much. But there are other disagreements that we can have that can be bigger on the scale. And some of those things might include governmental issues. Politics are big. Maybe religion. Maybe you don't agree with somebody else's religion, or they don't agree with yours, or maybe you've been spending time witnessing to them and they're not really appreciating your input. These things can cause disagreements in relationship. Maybe there has been a falling out. Maybe there's been some anger and some words that have been spoken, and now you don't know what to do with that. And you're sitting in it and going, what do I do? When it comes to your relationship with Jesus, you're not going to backtrack on that to make somebody else happy, I hope. But when it comes to some other things, like there can be a falling out, there can be anger, there can be some issues of things that, stir your heart. And if you weren't the one who was angry, maybe your friend is the one who is angry with you over something that you've done or said or believe, right? These are all things that cause stress in relationships. Maybe, and I'll say this, I've had these things happen, right? Like, I've had a falling out in a relationship where there was anger that's involved, and it's tricky sometimes to know, what's the best way to handle this? What do I do with this relationship? Is it important that I stand my ground or not? These are very, very common issues. But, maybe you've had a friendship where all of a sudden there's just been this level of abandonment, and you're like, I don't know actually what happened. And I actually had that happen to me years ago. We're talking many, many, many years ago. But I had been really good friends with this gal, and we hung out a lot. We did a lot of things together, had her over for dinner. I went over to her place. We went shopping together, and we were friends for years. And then all of a sudden one day, it just stopped. I called, she didn't answer. I thought, okay, that's odd, right? And she never called me back. And I'm like, what's happening in this relationship all of a sudden? There was this no comment, no conversation. It just ended. That was it. It was done. And I'm like, didn't know when it happened. It wasn't until many years later she called me and she goes, let's go for coffee. Many years later, not the next week or something like that, but we're talking many years later. She took me out and we had a conversation, and it didn't have much to do with me, but it had to do with her, and that she was starting to feel that, her my friendship with her was becoming more important than her friendship with the Lord. And I'm like, so you just cut me off? Like, that was hard to handle. That was a very painful experience, and maybe you've gone through that. And so you have this relationship stress of what's happened in my relationship. Are we friends? Are we not friends? I don't know what's going on. Those are real things that can happen, and I don't know that they happen to everybody, but that did happen to me. But one of the common things that can happen in friendships is misunderstandings and offenses, right? Sometimes you can say something and you don't realize that it's, it's hurtful. Or maybe somebody has said or done something to you and, it hurt a little bit and it stung. If it's you, my first thing would be like, let's take a look at our offense and find out where it's coming from, and let's go to the Lord and get it healed, right? We don't want to be walking in a spirit of offense. But you can't control what anybody else is doing. You can't control how they're feeling things and how they're receiving things. So looking at that and going, what do we do with this? So what are some of the emotions that you can feel if any of these things have been something that you've experienced in friendships, in relationships, close relationships? What are some of the feelings that you can feel? Well, there can be, of course, your feelings can be hurt. And when my friend abandoned me, and basically, like I said, I had no idea what had happened, and I didn't know. My kids were asking where she was, and I had no answer because I didn't know what had happened. I'm like, can I apologize? Like, I had no idea. I missed her greatly, and it was many years, like I said. So there was hurt feelings that I had to work through. I had to work through some insecurities. I with a fine-tooth comb, I went back over conversations, our last conversation that we had. I went through it with the fine-tooth comb to try to figure out what had happened that would have caused this thing to take place, and I just couldn't come up with anything. And so it was just a difficult time. My feelings were hurt, and there was some things that I needed to work through. And by the time we did go for coffee, that had happened. But maybe you've had, a misunderstanding with somebody, and your feelings can be hurt because they lashed out in anger, rage, and they pierced your heart with some of the things that they said. I think that's quite common, or more common at least, than an abandonment in a friendship. So you can feel disappointment in these situations. If there's been a falling out, if there's been, an offense or misunderstanding, you can have a sense of disappointment either in that person or maybe even in your own responses to the things that have taken place. And there's a fear that can be there, a fear of losing the friendship, the fear of not knowing what's going to happen next, the fear of what's being said. What are these people talking about when they're talking about me? I don't know. You can have a lot of unease that can be, swirling around inside of you. And this can cause you to rise up in a self-protection, right? Like I have to protect myself. And so I want to really encourage you on this, and, don't go running around and telling everybody what happened, right? Like, just be quiet. If they're talking, that will be seen. If you're not talking, that will also be seen. And so be confident and don't run around trying to self-protect, right? Like, don't be trying to get people to see things from your point of view. Let it be. Let God handle it for you, and just live your life. Just give it to the Lord. Keep coming to the Lord with your woundedness and ask the Lord to continue to bring healing into your life. That's a place to start. And then, you can also have anger. This too, you need to go to the Lord with. But what is making you angry about it? I think I probably went through that with the abandonment of the friendship, but because I'm like, what the heck happened, right? And so you have an anger there that, like, I thought we were friends. You could at least give me a call and tell me what I did wrong. Because like I said, it was years. And I mean, at least 5 years went past before we actually had a conversation about it. And so, yeah, lots of feelings can happen there. And even if it's not abandonment, even if it's a misunderstanding or an offense or a disagreement of some kind, you can still have some anger in that. And then in my case with the abandonment, a lot of confusion, right? Like, so these are all things that we need to take to the Lord, and we need to begin to go, Lord, I'm asking you to heal this in me. I'm asking you to look at it. I'm giving it to you. I'm handing it over to you. I'm asking you, Lord God, to show me where I've fallen off in this relationship. What part am I responsible for? So that he can bring the healing that needs to happen into your heart, and so that you can release it to him and walk away and do the things he's called you to do. So that's the with relationships. Now, what about family? You might have some toxic family members that, it's difficult. We're talking Christmas. We're coming up to the season here where we're all going to be gathered together at a table. And maybe you have some toxic family that you really don't want to be around. And, there's a lot of frustration that can happen with that. A lot of feelings of, I don't want to go and sit across the table from Uncle Bill. I don't want to go into that situation and have to deal with my narcissistic parent or my narcissistic sibling. I don't want to be in an environment where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, right? Like, these are all some things that we can go through when we've got family. Maybe that phone call comes in from, a parent or a sibling, and your heart just sinks and you're like, I don't want to have the conversation, right? So if you know what I'm saying, put a like now in the and leave me a comment and go, yeah, I get it, right? Please share it with somebody else that might be struggling with these same things. So family can cause a lot of stress, and especially during the holidays, especially this holiday, it can create a lot of stress. Not to mention the religious differences that can happen at this time of year. As a believer, you might have some people in your household that are atheists or pagans or practicing something else, and they've decided that Eastern religions are more their thing. These are things that cause stress, especially if you have children and you don't want your children hearing some of these conversations. What do you do in these events, right? So taking a look at the stress of relationships, right? Maybe you have a child that's going off in the wrong direction. You've raised them in the church, you prayed for them, you've helped them to read and study and learn the Bible, and now all of a sudden they seem to be drinking and partying or living with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and you just see that they're doing things that you don't want them to do. And I want to encourage you in this, because that has happened to me. And, I'll say this, this can cause a lot of fear in some people, because the fear is that they're going to, if they don't turn their life around, their eternity is not going to be great. And you don't want them to go to hell. And so that's just a reality. And so looking at that and going, but for me, what I did is, when I had my children dedicated to the Lord when they were babies, so when they were children, I meant it. And so when I would pray, like, people would ask me, are you not stressed? I'm like, I'm not stressed. This is now God's problem. I'm going to just allow God to deal with it. They belong to him before they belong to me. And when I dedicated them to the Lord, I meant what I said. And so I'm trusting that the Lord he's going to take that covenant that I made with him over my children, and he's going to work it to good, and my children will serve the Lord. And that was the step that I took in those relationships. But it can cause a lot of unsettling and a lot of stress in your life while they're living adversely. And so these are all things, drugs, alcohol, all those things, and maybe they've got addictions and you're just concerned about all of that. These are real concerns, and I'm not making light of it, but praying about it and giving it to the Lord is where we need to start. And again, maybe you've got some aging parents that, you're going, I don't know, they're doing pretty good, but they are in their 80s, they're doing they seem to be really healthy, but they're 95. What's happening, right? So there can be that concern or some worry, or maybe they are sick and they're in a home, or they've just been in the hospital, and you've got concern around those areas, and, maybe for yourself or your family, there's illnesses that are there. When my first husband was sick with leukemia, there was a lot of exhaustion that came with that, a lot of fear, a lot of stress, a lot of concern, a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of things that you just don't expect to have to deal with in your early 50s. It was kind of like, I'm not prepared for this. I'm not ready to be doing this. So those are all some of the areas that you can have some family stress around. And then let's talk about marriage as we round this up. Like marriage is one of those areas that probably causes us a lot of stress, maybe more stress than some of these other relationships. And so looking at that, it's like maybe you've got a sadness and a sorrow over your relationship because your relationship is starting to fall apart. You're becoming more distant. Maybe the kids have moved out and you're looking across the table at your spouse and going, I don't know if I like you anymore. And I'll be honest, during COVID, I dealt with a lot of this. There was a lot of people in that, as a pastor, as a, one who deals with inner healing and counseling, I was super busy because it seemed like marriages all around me were cracking and they were not getting along. A lot of stress around those environments, right? But the sadness and the sorrow of what you believed that you had that fell apart during those seasons, I know one couple that decided that they were going to make it work, and excited for them. I think two of them have gotten divorced, and the rest of them have just kind of decided that they're just going to put up with it because this is the way it's been for as long as it's been. And it's like, that's sad, right? So you can have a sadness and a sorrow as you find yourself drifting apart and pulling apart. But addictions is also a really big part of one of the things that can cause us stress in a marriage. Addictions to alcohol, addictions to drugs, or pornography. Pornography is a really big problem, and it is a problem that people have in the church. And the thing is when people are struggling with pornography, it can get to the point that they don't want to have actual relations with their spouse, and so that becomes a real issue, and that can cause anger, insecurity. It can cause fear. It can cause a breakdown of many different areas in that. And the emotions that you feel will be intense, and there will be many of them. And so looking at that and going, what do I do if my spouse is addicted to things? But then let's not forget busy schedules. If you're both working and you both got kids and, you're coming home, you're going to work, you're coming home, you're taking the kids where they need to be, there's dinner meals and things like that. It can be easy to begin to drift apart because of the busy schedules. Taking the time to reconnect can be difficult to do, but necessary. So looking at those things as well and going, I need to make sure that I make time for my spouse in all things. Finances cause a huge amount of stress and worry in relationships, and it is one of the top reasons why people get divorced is just the level of debt, the level of worry and stress over finances, of debt. And maybe you've got one person in your marriage that doesn't handle money well and they overspend consistently. And so you're struggling with this pit of, what do I do with this? Where do I go from here? I feel like there's no hope for me in this situation. Lack of communication, isolation, alone, feeling misunderstood. Maybe you have a partner who is, sometimes they get angry and they kind of stay in that place for a while. What do you do with that? How do you manage that? That isolation. And then there's infidelity, and that's a huge one. If you are in a relationship where infidelity has taken place, there's anger, there's really deep pain that comes with that. And there's a resentfulness that can really just settle into your heart as you look at your spouse and go, I don't know if I can't trust you. You've shattered everything that we have worked so hard to accomplish. For what? And so there can be a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of a lot of guilt. There can be guilt. There can be, a lot of emotions that we feel with infidelity. And it's important to look at these things and to deal with them and to try to find somebody else who will be able to help you through those difficult times. So these things, it's important for you to understand that things that we've talked about up until this point are not things that go away quickly. There are things that are not easily resolved. None of these things can be easily resolved. They're kind of a thing that you sit in for a long time. You have to sit in it for a year or years or decades, maybe even, before you start to see a shift or you have to make some tough choices. So, and because in all of these situations, it takes time to rebuild relationships. Rebuilding relationships, putting up boundaries with toxic family. I'm not saying you need to put up with things, but you need to put up a boundary and say, this is my boundary. I'm not willing to do this if you're going to be doing that. Putting up those boundaries with a spouse who have some of these things that we've talked about. These are things, rebuilding relationships, rebuilding trust it takes time. Because the thing about trust is earned. It's not just freely given. If we come into a relationship and go, I like this person, I'm going to trust them explicitly, they have to earn it. And especially if you've been in a relationship or a friendship, even with your kids' addictions, it takes time to establish trust again. It's not something that happens immediately. And so there's a lot of steps that need to take place and a lot of triggers that will happen in the relationship as you walk along to go, okay, so for whoever it is that has had the whatever the issues, the addictions, the affair, whatever it is, to look at those things and go, okay, yes, you might not like to hear this, but you are the one who has to reestablish the boundaries of that trust. You are the one who has to go, okay, I'm running late. I'm going to the store to pick up X, Y, and Z, but I should be home by this time. If you don't call, understand that there's going to be a trigger that's going to happen in your spouse. And the same goes for addictions. It's going to be that if you say you're going to be home, you need to be home. If you say you haven't been drinking, it's up to you to help to reestablish those boundaries. And to reestablish those feelings of trust and connection again. So those are some difficult things I know that we've talked about, but it's difficult to sit in those emotions too. It's difficult not to allow our mind to run away with the fact that your husband or your wife or your children are doing any of the things, or you've got a really close friend that you've been friends with for a long time, and these are some of the things that are going on. Sitting in those things is you have to sit in them. They're not going to go away. But like I said, I encourage you to take them to the Lord. So what are some tools that we can do if any of these things are things that you've come up against in your relationships? Well, I think first of all, and this is really hard, and I people don't like it when I say this, but the reality is we really need to thank God for the revelation, regardless of how much it hurts, because you can only be fixed if you admit the situation, if you can come before the Lord and go, that really sucks. Like, I'm not going to lie, God, now that I know this, I don't know what to do. And it's really hard, but I'm struggling, but I'm going to give my heart to you in this matter. I'm going to give you my emotions, and I'm going to trust you to begin to heal me. But thank you for the revelation. Thank you that things are no longer hidden. I'm thanking you, God, for showing me the truth. So that's step number 1. And then 2 is, now that it's revealed, ask God to help you to respond appropriately. What do you do? How do you respond? It's okay. I want to give you permission. It's okay that if you find out that your spouse has been looking at pornography, that if you find out that your spouse has had an affair, that your children are lying to you as they're, going out and, indulging in drugs and alcohol, and that's something that you've built a relationship on through the years. It's okay for you to be angry about that. It's okay for you to be hurt about that. It's okay for you to say to them, I don't like this and I don't know what to do. It's okay for you to take some time with the Lord to separate yourself, to think about what are my next steps. And it's okay to get help. It's okay to go to somebody who can help you walk through some of these familial landmines that you're going through. It's okay not to have all the answers, and it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to cry, and it's expected. It's okay that your trust is broken. It's okay, right? It's okay that you understand that God is going to carry you through this, and he's going to show you every step of the way what to do. So thank God for the revelation is number 1, and number 2 is to ask him to reveal your heart in the matter. What is your heart? What do I do with it? Where do I go from this? And or that was number 3, sorry. Number 2 is now that it's been revealed, ask God to help you to respond appropriately. And then number 3 is ask him to reveal your heart in the matter. So resentment can be something that can happen in some of the things that we've talked about. Absolutely. So it's looking at that and going, God, where's my heart? Maybe you're the one that had the extramarital affair, got too close to somebody, and you need to look at that and go, God, reveal my heart to me. What led me down this road? But even if it is somebody, the other person, you're looking at that and going, God, help me to understand where I'm at right now, because I want to have the heart of God and I want to have the mind of Christ. But right now I can guarantee you I do not. And that's okay, because God will help you get to that place. So number 4 is to give to God the person and or persons and your desire to change and control the outcome. That's really a big deal for us, is that when something happens in a relationship, whether it's marriage or children or family or friendships, that very often, especially with our closer relationships, we want to control the outcome. And I see people have, through the years, that have acted badly because they've wanted so badly to control the narrative or to control the outcome or to save the relationship, to save the marriage, to save the children. And you know, we need to give them to God, really, because there's nothing that we can intervene, but if they don't want intervention, they'll just go back into it, right? So we need to come to a place where we're able to go, okay, God, here I am. And I'm going to give you these people because I can't carry it and I don't know what to do with it. So here you go. Take them, have your way with them, do what only you can do with them. So that's the 4 steps that I have for you today. And again, I'll just quickly go over them. And it's 1, to thank God for the revelation, regardless of how much it hurts. We don't like that one, but that is true. Thank God that he revealed it. And number 2, now that it's been revealed, ask God to help you to respond appropriately. How does he want you to respond? And number 3 is ask him to help you to reveal your heart to you so that you can deal with the emotions as they come up. You can deal with and allow God to come in and bring healing to those areas that have been so deeply wounded and damaged in some of the situations we've talked about. And the number 4, give the person to God, giving them to God. And then if need be, you put up some boundaries and go, well, this is my boundary. This is how we're going to if you're going to talk to me this way and you're going to yell at me and you're going to, you're going to think it's okay. Well, it's not okay that you talk to me. So this is my boundary. This is my boundary. I'm not going to talk to you in private. I'm not going to have a phone call with you. if we're going somewhere, we're going to have a conversation. My boundary is, if you start to get angry, then you need to know, and you start yelling or you start swearing or you start calling me down, I'm going to leave, right? So putting up those boundaries, very important. Biggest thing to remember here is you cannot change another person. That's God's job. You cannot make somebody else respond the way you want them to respond. You cannot make somebody else believe the way you want them to believe. You cannot make somebody stop an addiction if they do not want to stop the addiction. And so this is where it's really important for us to remember that, because if we try to do that, we will start to walk in control. We will start to walk wanting to control the other person, wanting to control their life, wanting to try to dictate what they can and cannot do. But I will guarantee you this, anybody who has an addiction or anybody who wants to have an affair, if they want to have one, they will have one. And so understand that as you work through some of these relational issues. And so if you found this helpful, if you found this encouraging, if you found this helpful, please like, share, subscribe, and share with somebody else who will maybe find this helpful. Leave me a comment as we go through. I appreciate them so much. Be blessed and have a great day.